People of Reddit who have been abducted by aliens. What's your story? Okay, if no one is going to take this seriously, I guess I'll share my story. I don't expect anyone to believe me. I've tried telling this to several of my friends and once to my dad, but they always thought I was just joking around or something. I wish I was. It was 2009. I was 13. I was staying up late on the family computer on a Friday night, playing some flash game or something. I remember my mom had just gone to bed 10 minutes prior. I vividly remember typing in half the URL to addicting games when I heard it. This weird silence. It's hard to explain, but all sound disappeared except for the sounds of my fingers on the keys. No crickets outside, no wind, not even the sounds of my loud computer in the room. I stopped and sat there for a second wondering if there was something wrong with me. I remember worrying I was having a stroke or something. Then I was there. This huge space. Pitch black. I could barely make out the edges of the room, but it was vaguely metallic. It was freezing. It took me a couple minutes just laying there for it to sink in what was happening, but I was floating in this giant room staring up at where the ceiling should be. There were no lights anywhere, but somehow the small area I was hovering in was illuminated. I remember kind of looking around and taking it all in a sort of fugue state until sound came back, only now there was this strange hum that was sort of going up and down in pitch slowly, kind of like a motor, but softer and more harmonic or something. I don't really know how to describe it, but it was like there were multiple layers stacked like a chord rising up and down in this weird dissonance that made me really uneasy. When I snapped out of it, I took this huge breath and my adrenaline kicked in. I tried moving, but I could only move my head. My clothes were still on, but I was just floating there, head whipping around trying to figure out what the duck was going on. I was fully awake, possibly more awake than I've ever been since. I can't tell you how intense the fear was. Then this sound of breathing came from behind me, and what sounded like heavy, hard footsteps on a metal surface. Loud, deep exhales with almost this sort of vibration to them. I turned my head as best I could to try and see, but it was coming from beyond the light. My heart was beating so ducking hard I thought I was going to die. I started to see a figure emerging slowly at first. My brain was having trouble registering it. It wasn't human. It was vague. As it approached the light, I started to make out the features. It was a horse. This ducking brown horse with black hair slowly walked into the light and past me. I remember feeling the heat from its body as it did. It was so close. Then it went to what looked like a door at the edge of the room closest to my feet, just where the light was starting to fall off again, and it stood up. I heard a sort of zipper-like sound, and all of a sudden the horse collapses, like skin to the ground, revealing a small humanoid figure. It turns around and looks at me with huge black eyes, then just walks out the door. Before I could process any of this, there was suddenly a presence beside me, and I turned my head just in time to see another humanoid thing putting this ball with lights on it over my face. Then I woke up, but I didn't wake up in my bed. I was outside my house, a couple kilometers away. My clothes were a little ripped and dirty, and I had this awful headache. I slowly got up and looked around. I was down this dirt road near my house. We lived in the countryside, and just outside the driveway of one of our neighbors. When I realized where I was, I just walked back to my house, took an Advil, and went to bed. At the time, I just wanted the night to be over, and I had no idea what happened. But as time has gone on, I know for a fact that what I experienced was real. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't sleep paralysis or sleepwalking or that thing Mike Birbiglia has. It was so incredibly real. I didn't tell anyone about it for a long time. Years. And any time I see a horse on someone's farm or whatever, I think about that night. I think about telling them. But what would they say?